Hey guys! Tonight we're going to dive into a world that, on the surface, seems filled with laughter and merriment, a whimsical existence of witty retorts and colorful costumes. But don't let the gilded cages fool you. Tonight, we're talking about the truly brutal reality of being a court jester in medieval Europe. Imagine stepping into a bustling, dimly lit great hall, the air thick with the scent of roasting meat and unwashed bodies, the murmur of 1,000 conversations buzzing like an angry hive. You see the tapestries hanging heavy on the walls, depicting grand battles and noble deeds, but your eyes are drawn to the king, seated on his massive throne, a glint of steel in his gaze. And then, there's you. You're in your motley, bells jingling with every nervous twitch, a forced smile plastered on your face, because tonight, like every night, you are the entertainment. The one person in this entire court whose job it is to make the most powerful man in the kingdom laugh. Or at least, not behead you. Now. Before you get comfortable. Take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're up for it. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in a world where humor is a weapon, a shield, and often, a noose. Your very existence hinges on your ability to entertain, to distract, to alleviate the crushing boredom and simmering tensions of medieval court life. It's not just about telling a joke, it's about reading the room, understanding the subtle shifts in the king's mood, predicting the whispers of discontent among the nobles. One wrong word, one misjudged jest, and your career, and quite possibly your life, could come to an abrupt and painful end. You walk a tightrope, a human punchline teetering over a chasm of royal displeasure. Think about it, you. A mere commoner, or perhaps a disgraced noble, are granted an almost unheard of privilege, the right to speak truth to power, to mock the very individuals who could order your execution with a flick of a wrist. This freedom, however, is a double-edged sword, always threatening to sever the hand that wields it. You learn to master the art of the veiled insult, the biting sarcasm delivered with a wink and a smile, the truth so cleverly disguised as folly that only the sharpest minds in the court even grasp their true meaning. Historians still debate whether these jesters were truly free agents or merely puppets with a longer leash. But one thing is clear: your existence is precarious. Your days begin not with a leisurely breakfast, but with the gnawing anxiety of performance. What fresh absurdity will you concoct today? What new angle can you find to amuse a king who has seen it all, heard it all, and probably ordered the beheading of a few too many people who didn't amuse him? You spend hours observing, listening, absorbing every scrap of gossip and every subtle gesture. You're a human sponge, soaking up the court's anxieties and transforming them into comedic gold. Sometimes, you'll even hear common folk lamenting their woes outside the castle walls, giving you fodder for a jibe at the royal tax collector, a safe way to air grievances under the guise of foolishness. Remember that old trick of making fun of the taxman? It's a classic for a reason. Everyone hates the taxman. The brutal reality sets in the moment you realize that your entire identity is tied to your ability to make others laugh. You are no longer just you. You are the jester, an entity defined by your bells and cap, a perpetual performer whose personal feelings and private sorrows are utterly irrelevant. You are expected to be perpetually cheerful, even when your stomach aches from hunger or your heart aches from loneliness. There's no room for a bad mood, no allowance for a day when the jokes just don't flow. The show must always go on, even if it feels like your soul is slowly curdling inside you. You might be wondering, why would anyone choose this life? Well, often, you didn't choose it. Perhaps you were born into a family of jesters, inheriting the cap and bells like a cursed heirloom. Or maybe you possessed an undeniable wit, a quick tongue that caught the ear of a passing lord, who saw in you an opportunity for endless amusement. For some, it might have been a step up from utter destitution, a chance to trade starvation for an unpredictable but often well-fed existence within the castle walls. You might have even enjoyed the attention, the brief moments of power you wielded as you held the court spellbound with your antics. But even then, there's always that underlying current of fear. That knowledge that your position is as stable as a house of cards in a hurricane. Consider the physical demands. You're not just standing there telling jokes. Oh no, you're juggling, tumbling, singing, playing instruments, perhaps even performing feats of minor acrobatics. Imagine doing all of this while wearing layers of heavy, brightly colored fabric, often in poorly heated or stiflingly hot halls. Your muscles ache, your throat grows hoarse, and your body cries out for rest. But the king is still bored, and so you continue. You learn to ignore the discomfort, to push through the pain, because the alternative is far worse. And what if you slip? What if you drop a ball, or miss a note, or trip over your own feet during a particularly enthusiastic somersault? The laughter that follows might not be friendly, it might be the cold. Mocking laughter of a court waiting for you to fail? One lesser-known detail of a jester's life is their role as a kind of royal confidant. A pressure valve for the king's frustrations. Because you are, in essence, an outsider, a tolerated anomaly. The king might confide in you, seeking your unvarnished opinion on matters of state or personal dilemmas. You become a sounding board, a recipient of secrets that could easily damn you if ever repeated. You must listen, nod, offer a seemingly innocuous jest that subtly validates his thoughts, all while ensuring you don't offer any advice that could be misinterpreted as disloyalty. It's a psychological tightrope walk, and your survival depends on your ability to navigate it flawlessly. You might even find yourself in the position of delivering bad news, softening the blow with a joke, a bizarre twist on the classic "don't shoot the messenger" scenario. The harvest is ruined, my liege, but at least the mice are getting fat. You chuckle, hoping the king finds it amusing enough to spare your head. The relationships you form within the court are complicated. The knights might tolerate you. The ladies of the court might find your antics amusing. But true friendship is a luxury you can rarely afford. Everyone views you through the lens of your profession. You are the jester, not a person with hopes and dreams and fears, but a walking, talking source of amusement. This constant performance, this inability to truly be yourself, takes a heavy toll. You become a master of masks, changing your persona with the wind, never quite knowing who you are beneath the layers of painted smiles and forced jests. The lines between your true self and your jester persona begin to blur, until you wonder if there's anything left of the real you at all. Your evenings often end, not with celebratory feasting, but with quiet reflection in a small, often uncomfortable room. The laughter of the day fades, replaced by the silence of your own thoughts. You replay the day's performances, analyzing every chuckle, every frown, every subtle shift in the king's eyes. Did you go too far? Did you not go far enough? The weight of expectation is a crushing burden, and sleep often comes fitfully, haunted by the specter of tomorrow's performance. You might even dream of being just a simple farmer, toiling in the fields, free from the constant pressure of being on. But then, the cold reality of your lot in life sinks back in, and you prepare for another day of forced merriment. The court jester, a figure of fun and folly, yet beneath the surface, a human being navigating a world of immense power and profound vulnerability. The next morning, the echoes of yesterday's forced laughter still reverberate in your skull, a dull ache behind your eyes. You drag yourself from your straw mattress, the bells on your hat feeling heavier than usual. Your motley, once a vibrant explosion of color, now seems to mock you with its faded patches and lingering scent of stale ale. This isn't just a costume, it's a second skin. A uniform that erases your individuality and brands you as the court's perpetual amusement. And as you stumble towards the bustling kitchens, the promise of a meager breakfast your only motivation, you begin to plan your day's performance. Your existence, you realize, is a constant tightrope walk across a chasm of royal temper. One of the perilous paths you navigate daily is the ever-present threat of accidental insult. Imagine the king, in a particularly foul mood after a sleepless night or a frustrating council meeting. He's already prone to fits of rage, and your job is to lighten the atmosphere, to deflect his ire, but without becoming its target. You might tell a joke about a greedy merchant, hoping it resonates with his recent struggles with taxation. But what if he interprets it as a subtle dig at his own financial mismanagement? The lines are so incredibly fine, and the consequences so dire. You've seen other courtiers, even high-ranking ones, summarily dismissed or worse. For a perceived slight, you, the jester, are granted a unique license, but that license comes with an invisible, razor-sharp expiration date that could be activated at any moment. You recall one particularly tense evening when the king was furious about a botched hunting trip. The royal hunt, a symbol of his prowess, had yielded nothing but muddy boots and bruised egos. The air in the hall was thick with unspoken fear. You, sensing the volatile atmosphere, decided to try a bit of physical comedy, mimicking a clumsy hunter tripping over his own feet, accidentally shooting an arrow into his own hat. The court held its breath. Then a slow rumble began in the king's chest, growing into a full-bellied laugh that echoed through the hall. The tension broke. You had survived. But that moment, that split second before his laughter, felt like an eternity. A terrifying gamble where your life was the stake. This is the brutal reality of your profession. Every performance is a test, every joke a potential trap. Beyond the immediate danger of offending the monarch, there's the subtle but constant threat from other courtiers. You, the jester, hold a unique position, close to the king, often privy to whispers and confidences that others would kill for. This makes you a target. Jealous nobles might try to trick you into making a forbidden jest, or spread rumors about your loyalty, hoping to see you fall from grace. You learn to trust no one implicitly, to keep your own counsel, and to deflect subtle provocations with the same wit you use to entertain the king. It's a game of political chess, played with jokes and jests instead of knights and rooks. And you are a pawn, albeit a surprisingly influential one. In the king's court, another less talked about aspect of your perilous path is the sheer exhaustion. You're always on, there's no off switch for the jester, even when not actively performing. You're expected to maintain a certain level of cheerfulness, a ready wit for impromptu requests. Imagine trying to be funny when you're utterly drained, when your mind feels like a barren wasteland of comedic ideas. You spend your waking hours observing, planning, rehearsing, and performing. Sleep, when it comes, is rarely restful, often filled with nightmares of failed jokes and the king's scowling face. This constant mental and physical strain takes its toll, eroding your health and spirit bit by bit. Sometimes, the king's moods are so erratic, so unpredictable, that even your most carefully crafted jokes fall flat. Or worse, are met with icy silence. You might resort to desperate measures, perhaps even physical self-deprecation, a pratfall that leaves you winded, a slapstick routine that bruises more than just your ego. You embrace the role of the fool, the one who can be laughed at without consequence, hoping that by making yourself the butt of the joke, you can divert the king's attention from more dangerous targets. This act of self-humiliation is a survival mechanism, A grim testament to the lengths you will go to simply stay alive. You might find yourself tasked with the most uncomfortable duties, such as mocking a rival noble the king despises, or even acting out a satirical play that ridicules a neighboring kingdom. This puts you directly in the line of diplomatic fire, while the king might find it hilarious. The subjects of the mocked noble or kingdom might not. You become a tool of royal propaganda, a living, breathing political cartoon, and the potential repercussions, though often unseen, are very real. Scholars still debate whether jesters were truly agents of social commentary or merely instruments of royal power, but from your perspective, it feels like a bit of both. A heavy burden to bear. One common historical fact often overlooked is the jester's unique knowledge of the castle's secret passages and hidden nooks. Because you roam freely, often at odd hours, you become intimately familiar with the unseen arteries of the castle. This seemingly innocuous detail could, in times of crisis, make you an invaluable asset or a dangerous liability. Imagine knowing a secret escape route or overhearing a clandestine meeting in a forgotten corner. This information, if misused, could lead to your immediate demise, but if played correctly, could be your salvation. It's another layer of the perilous reality you inhabit. A constant reminder that even your intimate knowledge of the physical space can be a source of danger. Even your appearance, your signature motley and bells can become a source of peril. It marks you. You are instantly recognizable, unable to blend into the crowd. In times of civil unrest or a peasant revolt, your association with the king could make you a target of popular anger. You are, after all, a symbol of the very power that oppresses them. Even if your personal life is far from luxurious, there's no escaping your role, no shedding the cap and bells once you leave the king's presence. You are forever the jester, a walking, talking caricature, and that identity, while offering some protection within the castle, leaves you vulnerable outside its walls. Your days are a relentless cycle of performance and observation, a dance with danger where every step is carefully calculated. You learn to anticipate, to react, to bend with the prevailing winds of royal mood, the constant fear, the underlying tension, the sheer mental gymnastics required to stay alive. This is the true essence of your daily existence as a court jester. It's not a life of carefree laughter, but a perpetual balancing act on the knife edge of survival, where the curtain could fall, permanently, at any given moment. You are the tragic comedian, the smiling target, and the silent observer, all rolled into one, a testament to the brutal realities of power and entertainment in a medieval world. As the harsh light of a new day filters through the narrow windows of your cramped living quarters, you feel the familiar ache in your joints, a constant companion to your jester's cap and bells. Yesterday's performance, a dizzying blur of feigned merriment and nervous laughter, is already a distant memory, replaced by the crushing weight of today's demands. Your stomach growls, a familiar protest against the often scant and unappetizing fare provided to those of your station. A stark contrast to the lavish banquets you are expected to make jokes about. This brings us to a truth that goes beyond the laughter, the profound psychological toll of being a court jester. You are, in essence, an emotional contortionist, bending your true feelings into grotesque shapes for the amusement of others. Every day, you put on a mask, not just the painted grin of your profession, but an internal one that hides your fears, your anxieties, your moments of despair. You are expected to be perpetually cheerful, an endless fount of wit and levity. Regardless of your personal suffering, imagine having a crippling toothache, or grieving the loss of a loved one, and still being forced to juggle flaming torches while reciting limericks about the king's questionable fashion sense. There is no sick leave, no mental health day. The show, quite literally, must always go on. The court, a swirling vortex of ambition, jealousy, and whispered conspiracies, offers no true solace. You are an outsider, an anomaly, tolerated for your utility but rarely accepted as an equal. The nobles might laugh at your jokes, but they rarely laugh with you. You are a tool, a living plaything. And deep down, you know it. This inherent isolation creates a profound sense of loneliness. You observe the genuine camaraderie among the knights, the intimate conversations among the ladies of the court, and you realize that such connections are largely denied to you. Your relationships are transactional, you provide entertainment. They provide a precarious livelihood. This emotional distance, this constant performance of happiness, slowly erodes your sense of self, leaving behind a hollow echo where your true feelings once resided. Consider the mental gymnastics required to maintain this facade. You must constantly analyze, adapt, and invent. Your mind is a pressure cooker of comedic ideas, always on the hunt for the next jest. The next satirical observation that will elicit a laugh without crossing an invisible line. You learn to read micro-expressions, to anticipate moods, to deflect potential anger with a quick change of topic or a burst of absurd physical comedy. This constant mental strain is exhausting, leading to what we might now call burnout, a profound weariness that seeps into your very bones. You find yourself staring blankly at the castle walls, the vibrant colors of your motley seeming to drain away, leaving only a monochrome existence, a less obvious, but equally brutal. Psychological burden is the loss of personal identity. You are no longer known by your given name, but by your title, the Jester, the Fool, the Clown. Your individuality is subsumed by your role. Every action, every word, every gesture is interpreted through the lens of your profession. If you express a genuine opinion, it's dismissed as jester's wit. If you show a moment of sadness, it's seen as part of the act. This constant erasure of your true self, this reduction to a mere function, is soul-crushing. You begin to question who you are outside of the bells and cap, whether there's anything left of the person you once were before you entered the king's service. This can lead to what psychologists might call depersonalization, a feeling of being detached from your own body and thoughts. Furthermore, you are privy to the court's darkest secrets, the whispers of treachery, the hidden cruelties. You see the king's temper tantrums, his moments of paranoia, the cold calculations behind his pronouncements. You witness the petty jealousies of the nobles, their backstabbing, their desperate scramble for power. And you, the jester, are expected to absorb all of this, to turn it into harmless humor, to pretend that the world around you isn't a viper's nest of danger and deceit. You are a living diary of the court's transgressions, but you can never speak of them openly. This constant suppression of truth, this forced silence in the face of injustice, adds another layer to your psychological burden. Historians still debate the extent to which jesters served as informal confessors or therapists to their monarchs, but it's clear the emotional weight was immense. Imagine the internal conflict. You might genuinely despise a cruel lord, or feel sympathy for a wronged commoner. Yet you are compelled to mock the latter and amuse the former. Your moral compass is constantly being challenged, bent and twisted by the demands of your profession. You become adept at compartmentalizing your feelings, at pushing down your true reactions. But these suppressed emotions don't simply disappear, they fester, contributing to a deep, pervasive sense of unease. You might even begin to develop coping mechanisms. Perhaps a quiet drink in the evening, or a solitary walk on the castle grounds. Seeking brief moments of genuine quiet away from the demands of your role. The lack of control over your own destiny is another source of immense stress. Your fate rests entirely in the hands of the king, or even a favored noble. Your position is contingent on their whims, their moods, their ever-changing preferences. One day you are the favored entertainer, showering in coin and food. The next, a single misstep could see you banished, imprisoned, or worse. This constant unpredictability, This total lack of agency makes long-term planning impossible and fosters a pervasive sense of anxiety. You live in the perpetual present, simply trying to survive the next joke, the next performance, the next royal decree. The future is an unwritten, terrifying blank page. Even your successes, your moments of genuine triumph when the entire court erupts in laughter, feel bittersweet. They are not triumphs of your own making, but merely successful executions of your duty. The applause isn't for you, the person, but for the jester, the functionary. This detachment from your own achievements can lead to a sense of emptiness, a feeling that your life, despite its unique position, lacks true meaning or purpose beyond amusing others. It's a tragic irony the person whose job it is to bring joy to others is often the one most devoid of it themselves. So, as you finally lay your weary head down at night, the bells on your cap silent for a brief moment, you are left not with the echoes of laughter, but with the quiet hum of your own profound loneliness. The dull ache of a mind constantly stretched to its limits, and the unsettling realization that the most brutal reality of being a court jester lies not in the physical dangers, but in the relentless, soul-crushing weight of its psychological demands. The scent of stale wine and wood smoke still clings to your motley as you rise, the worn velvet scratching at your skin. Your bells, usually a cheerful jingle, feel like tiny weights pulling you down. Today, you understand more acutely than ever that the royal court's whim is the ultimate arbiter of your fate. You are not a free man, nor even a particularly respected one. You are a commodity, an amusing diversion, and your value fluctuates wildly with the shifting tides of royal favor. Imagine the king's mood this morning. Perhaps he's just received news of a successful harvest, and his face is wreathed in smiles, making your job easier, almost pleasant. Or perhaps a neighboring lord has slighted him, or a beloved falcon has flown off, and his brow is furrowed, a storm cloud brewing in his eyes. Your antennae, honed over years of anxious observation, immediately twitch. You must gauge his temperament the moment you enter the great hall, before you even utter a single syllable. A joke that would have been met with hearty laughter yesterday might earn you a stern glare, or even a dismissive wave of the hand. Today, that dismissive wave, while seemingly innocuous, carries the weight of a royal decree, a silent declaration of your temporary worthlessness. This reliance on the king's ever-changing emotions creates an incredibly unstable existence. Your access to better food, warmer lodgings, or even a few precious coins is entirely dependent on how well you amuse him at any given moment. You are always performing, always striving to elicit that coveted chuckle, that deep, resonant laugh that signals your continued utility. One common historical fact is that jesters often lived in a state of relative precarity, their fortunes tied directly to their patrons' whims. A particularly memorable performance could earn you a fine cloak or a silver goblet, but a series of duds could see you demoted to stable hand. Or worse, cast out into the harsh world with nothing but your tattered motley. The king's whim isn't just about his daily mood, it extends to his political objectives. You are often used as a tool, a living mouthpiece for royal propaganda. The king might instruct you, subtly or directly, to mock a rival, to lampoon a foreign power, or to subtly criticize a problematic policy of his own that he wishes to gauge public reaction to. You become a conduit for messages too dangerous for a noble to utter, a shield behind which the king can test the waters of public opinion. This makes you a participant, albeit an unwilling one. In the intricate and often deadly game of court politics, you are forced to choose your targets carefully, to understand the subtle implications of every jest, knowing that your words, however disguised as folly, carry real weight. One truly unique detail of a jester's precarious position is their frequent role in courtly rituals and ceremonies, while not always formally acknowledged. Your presence was often a subtle barometer of the king's favor. If you were prominently featured, performing alongside musicians and poets, it signaled your current high standing. If you were relegated to the back, your jokes ignored, it was a clear sign of waning influence. A public humiliation without a single word being spoken. You became a living indicator of the monarch's mood towards entertainment and, perhaps, towards the very concept of folly itself. This public display of royal favor, or lack thereof, further emphasizes how utterly dependent your life is on the king's arbitrary decisions. Moreover, your fate isn't just in the king's hands, it can also be influenced by the queen. The royal children, or powerful nobles who whisper in the king's ear, a jealous queen who finds your jokes crude, or a pompous duke you accidentally offended with a well-aimed barb, could easily turn the king against you. You must navigate this treacherous social landscape, attempting to be amusing enough to everyone without alienating anyone who holds influence. It's a constant performance of diplomacy, cloaked in humor, where every smile and every feigned laugh holds a hidden meaning. Academics still debate whether jesters were truly autonomous figures or merely extensions of the monarch's will. But from your vantage point, the answer is painfully clear. You are a puppet, and the king holds the strings. The most brutal aspect of the royal court's whim is its absolute and unquestionable nature. There are no appeals, no arguments, no pleas for mercy once the king's decision is made. If he decides he no longer finds you amusing, or if he needs to make an example, your fate is sealed. You could be cast out into poverty, or in more severe cases, subjected to corporal punishment or even execution. Your wit, your charm, your years of loyal service mean nothing when faced with the raw, unchecked power of a monarch. This arbitrary power is a sword hanging perpetually over your head, a constant reminder of your fragility. You learn to read the slight tightening of the king's lips, the subtle shift in his posture, the way his eyes glaze over when he's lost interest. These are your warning signs, your cues to change tactics, to switch to a different jest, to employ a new trick from your worn repertoire. You become a master of improvisation, your mind racing a mile a minute, desperately trying to salvage a flagging performance, to reclaim that elusive royal chuckle before the dreaded silence descends. It's a terrifying dance, a performance where your life is the grand prize. So, as you step into the bustling hall, the cacophony of courtly life washing over you, you carry the heavy burden of knowing that your very existence is a fleeting, fragile thing, utterly beholden to the unpredictable, often merciless, whim of the royal court. Your laughter is not your own. It is merely an echo of the power that controls your every breath. The echoes of the king's last hearty laugh still linger in the great hall. A fleeting victory in the endless battle for your survival. You wipe a bead of sweat from your brow, the bells on your cap jingling a silent protest against the constant strain. Every day is a performance, not just of jokes and songs, but of a delicate balance between amusement and self-preservation. You are an acrobat on a silken thread, and beneath you lies not a safety net, but the unforgiving stone floor of royal displeasure. Consider the subtle art of the royal insult. You are often expected to lampoon members of the court, to highlight their foibles and eccentricities for the king's amusement. But whom do you choose? A powerful duke with a notoriously short temper? A vain countess with influence over the queen? Or a less significant, but equally petty, knight who might seek petty revenge? Your choices are strategic, each one a calculated risk. You learn to target those with little power, or those the king himself secretly despises. You might even subtly mock the king himself, but only in the safest, most veiled ways, perhaps a joke about a monarch's heavy crown giving him a headache. A universal truth disguised as a personal jest. One often cited historical detail is that jesters were sometimes the only people who could directly criticize the king. But this freedom was always conditional. This isn't just about avoiding a lashing, it's about maintaining your precarious position. You must be amusing, yes, but never too amusing, lest you outshine the king or appear to usurp his own authority. You must be witty, but never too intelligent, for a truly intelligent jester might be perceived as a threat. You are required to walk a fine line between being memorable and being forgettable, a tightrope stretched taut between brilliance and utter mediocrity. This constant negotiation of your own cleverness is a draining mental exercise. Imagine the intricate dance you perform with the powerful figures of the court. When a formidable general enters the hall, you might offer a jest that praises his bravery, while subtly hinting at his gruff demeanor. When a beautiful lady of the court approaches, your humor might shift to more romantic, though still chaste. Themes. You are a chameleon, changing your comedic colors to match the social landscape, always aiming to please, always striving to avoid offense. It's a full-time diplomatic mission, disguised as entertainment. A lesser-known aspect of this delicate balance is your role in diffusing tension. When a heated argument erupts between two nobles, or when the king is on the verge of losing his temper, you are often the one expected to intervene with a timely jest, a silly song, or a distracting antic. You are the court's living pressure valve, releasing the steam before it causes an explosion. This requires incredible timing and an almost psychic ability to sense the mood of the room. You become adept at reading body language, at picking up on the unspoken cues that signal brewing trouble. This isn't just about humor, it's about crisis management, a brutal test of your quick thinking under immense pressure, the ultimate balancing act. However, is between your own personal feelings and your professional demands. You might witness an injustice, a cruel act perpetrated by a noble, and your heart might cry out in protest, but you cannot speak out. Your voice, normally used for laughter, is silenced by the unspoken rules of the court. You must maintain your neutral, amused facade, even when your soul recoils, this constant suppression of your own moral compass. This forced complicity is a heavy burden, adding another layer to the psychological toll of your profession. Scholars still debate whether jesters subtly influence policy through their humor, or simply reflected existing power dynamics. But from your perspective, the goal is survival. You learn to compartmentalize, to separate your public persona from your private self. The jester laughs and prances, but the human beneath the motley often weeps in silence. This division, this fragmentation of your identity, is the price you pay for your precarious existence within the castle walls. You learn to smile even when you feel like screaming, to joke even when your heart is heavy. This constant act of emotional suppression is perhaps the most brutal aspect of your daily life. So, as you bow deeply, your bells tinkling, and the relieved laughter of the court washes over you, you know that you have, once again, walked the tightrope successfully, but the tension never truly dissipates. It lingers, a constant hum beneath the surface of your forced cheer, reminding you that tomorrow, the balance might shift, and your delicate act could come crashing down. The laughter fades, replaced by the hushed whispers of the court as night descends upon the castle. You retreat to your cramped chamber, the scent of expensive perfumes and stale wine still clinging to your motley. The bells on your cap feel heavy, their jingle now a mournful chime. It is in these quiet, shadowed hours that you are most acutely aware of the darker side of the royal court, a world far removed from the festive facade you help to maintain. You are a silent observer, often overlooked in the grand schemes of power. Yet you see everything. You witness the subtle poisonings at banquets, dismissed as sudden illnesses but understood by you to be acts of ruthless ambition. You see the veiled threats exchanged between rival factions, the forced smiles that hide bitter resentment. You hear the whispers of illicit affairs, of secret alliances formed and broken with callous disregard. The court is a viper's nest, and you, the jester, are the fly on the wall, privy to its most dangerous secrets. Imagine overhearing a conversation between a powerful duke and a visiting dignitary, their voices low, plotting a rebellion against the very king you serve. You freeze, every fiber of your being screaming to flee, to expose them. But you know that to reveal such a secret would be to sign your own death warrant. You are a repository of dangerous knowledge, forced to carry the burden of these dark truths, knowing that a single misstep, a single spoken word out of place, could lead to your demise. This intimate knowledge of the court's depravity weighs heavily on your soul, a constant reminder of the thin ice you skate upon, one particularly disturbing, yet common aspect of medieval courts that you observe is the casual cruelty, from the brutal punishments meted out to peasants for minor infractions, to the king's casual disregard for human life. You witness it all. You see the torture chambers below the castle, hear the faint screams that sometimes pierce the thick stone walls. You see the public executions, grim spectacles designed to instill fear and obedience, and you are expected to make jokes, to divert attention, to create an illusion of merriment while such horrors unfold just beyond the periphery of the court's vision. This constant exposure to suffering, this forced complicity in the face of injustice, scars you deeply. A unique and often overlooked detail is how jesters sometimes served as unwitting witnesses to royal conspiracies. Because you have unparalleled access, moving freely through the castle at all hours, you might stumble upon a secret meeting, or find a discarded letter detailing a plot. You become a living, breathing piece of evidence, a potential threat to those involved. This turns your inherent invisibility into a grave danger. You are invisible enough to witness, but too visible to escape the consequences if your knowledge is ever suspected. This makes every dark corner, every quiet corridor, a potential trap. Furthermore, you bear witness to the king's personal cruelties, his moments of uncontrolled rage, his petty vindictiveness. He might order a favored servant beaten for a minor transgression, or banish a loyal noble on a whim. These acts, often done in private or within the seemingly safe confines of the royal chambers, are stark reminders of the absolute power he wields, and how easily that power can be turned against you. You see the fear in the eyes of others, and you recognize that same fear in your own heart. Historians still debate whether jesters deliberately documented these darker aspects of court life through their performance, or if their acts were merely a reflection of their survival instincts. But for you, it is simply the air you breathe. Simply, you learn to compartmentalize, to create a mental fortress around your true feelings, allowing the jester to perform while the human beneath shudders. But even the strongest walls can crack under constant pressure. The laughter you evoke sometimes feels like a scream trapped inside your own throat, a desperate plea for escape from the brutal reality of the court's dark underbelly. So, as the castle sleeps and shadows dance on your chamber walls, you lie awake, the whispers of treachery and the echoes of unseen cruelty filling the silence. You are the court jester. Yes, but you are also its unwilling confidant, its silent witness, and its permanent resident in the chilling theater of its darker side. The weight of the crown is nothing compared to the weight of the secrets you carry. You've seen the darkness, tasted the fear, and yet you continue to jingle your bells, to offer your forced smiles. But amidst the clamor and the cruelty, there are moments, fleeting and dangerous, when you, the jester, become the unsung voice of the court. You are uniquely positioned. Unlike the nobles, you have no lands to protect, no lineage to uphold. Unlike the clergy, you are not bound by rigid doctrine. Your role, paradoxical as it may seem, grants you a kind of perverse freedom to speak truths others dare not utter. when the king is particularly oppressive, or a policy is clearly disastrous. The murmurs of discontent begin to ripple through the court, but who will voice them directly to the monarch? No one. Save for the fool. Imagine the peasants starving due to a harsh new tax. The nobles complain amongst themselves, but none risk the king's wrath by speaking plainly. So you, the jester, might weave a tale about a village where the cows are so thin. They can escape through the eye of a needle, and the people are so hungry. They dream of grass. You deliver it with a mournful sigh and a comical tear, making it seem like a harmless, silly lament. But the underlying message, the plea for the suffering common folk, is clear to those with ears to hear. The king might even chuckle, unaware of the quiet subversion at play. This is your power to embed hard truths within the palatable sugarcoat of humor, once subtle yet critical. Detail is that jesters often possessed a surprising amount of informal intelligence. Because you roamed freely, unthreatening in your motley, people often spoke more openly in your presence. You picked up gossip, overheard conversations, and absorbed the general sentiment of the court and even the populace just outside the castle walls. This allowed you to craft your jests with precision, targeting the king's vulnerabilities or subtly echoing the grievances of his subjects. You were an unwitting and unsung intelligence operative, gathering information that could then be subtly deployed through your comedic routines. This often made you more knowledgeable about the true state of the kingdom than many of the king's own advisors. There are times when the king himself, perhaps weary of sycophants, encourages you to speak your mind, to offer a genuinely critical perspective. He might even demand it. "Fool," he might bellow. "Tell me, what does a real man think of my new tax on pigeons?" And in that moment, you have a fleeting opportunity to inject a sliver of honest opinion into the royal echo chamber. You must still be careful, cloaking your critique in wit, but you seize the chance to offer a different viewpoint. One untainted by self-interest or fear of reprisal. Historians still debate the true extent of the jester's influence, but it is undeniable that they often served as the only voice of dissent in a court full of yes-men. However, this role as the unsung voice comes with immense risk. If your message is too direct, too biting, or if the king is simply not in the mood for uncomfortable truths, your privileged position vanishes instantly. The line between accepted satire and outright insolence is incredibly thin, constantly shifting with the monarch's temperament. You must possess an uncanny ability to read the room, to know precisely how far you can push before the laughter turns to a dangerous silence. You are the only one who can lampoon the powerful, poke fun at sacred cows, and even, at times, gently remind the king of his own humanity and fallibility. Your jokes might be the only instances where the pomp and circumstance of the court are punctured, where a breath of raw, unvarnished reality is allowed to enter. But it's a thankless task, a performance done not for personal glory, but for the slim chance of swaying a mighty ruler, or simply for survival. So, as you perform your routines, your bells jingling with carefully calibrated mischief, you are more than just an entertainer. You are a subtle provocateur, a reluctant truth-teller, and the unsung voice in a court where honesty is a dangerous luxury. You speak not for yourself, but for the silent multitudes, hoping against hope that your whispered wisdom, disguised as folly, might just reach the ears of power. The king's laughter, a fleeting melody, has faded into the grand, echoing silence of the hall. Your bells, once vibrant with mirth, now hang heavy, cold against your motley, with a chilling certainty. That for a jester in medieval Europe. The end of the show often comes not with a gentle bow, but with an abrupt, brutal finality. Your career, so utterly reliant on the capricious whims of power, is always teetering on the precipice of oblivion. Imagine the scenarios. Perhaps the king grows tired of your jokes, finding your wit stale or your antics repetitive. He simply loses interest, and without his favor, your position evaporates like morning mist. You are no longer needed, no longer amusing. You might be given a meager sum and dismissed, cast out from the castle gates, your only possessions the clothes on your back and the memory of a life lived on the razor's edge. What do you do then? Where do you go? A jester without a court, a fool without an audience. Your specialized skills, so valuable within the castle walls, are utterly useless in the harsh, unforgiving world outside. You are a fish out of water, a tragic figure stripped of your purpose, or perhaps, and this is far more chilling, you accidentally offend a powerful noble, a mistake that the king, for political reasons, cannot overlook. Your life then becomes a convenient sacrifice, a way to appease a more influential figure. One day you are juggling for the court, the next you are languishing in a dungeon, your wit and charm unable to save you from the cold. Hard reality of medieval justice, the king's laughter, which once seemed like your salvation, becomes a distant, mocking echo. This swift and irreversible decline is a common thread in the brutal reality of the jester's existence. Consider a less dramatic, but equally bleak. End old age and infirmity, your body, so vital for the physical comedy and endless energy required of your role, begins to fail, your joints ache, your memory falters, your voice grows weak. The king, seeking fresh amusement, replaces you with a younger, more vigorous jester. You are then shunted aside, perhaps given a small pension if you were particularly favored, but more likely left to fend for yourself in a world that has no use for a broken fool. You've given your life, your wit, your very soul to the court, only to be discarded when your usefulness expires. It's a harsh, unfeeling reality, a stark reminder that you are a tool, not a person. In the eyes of your patrons, a unique and particularly poignant detail about the jester's end is the absence of a true legacy, unlike knights who gain renown in battle, or scholars whose writings endure. The jester's art is ephemeral. It lives only in the moment, in the laughter it elicits. Once the performance is over, it vanishes. There are no great statues erected in your honor, no epic poems sung about your witty remarks. Your contribution, vital though it was in its time, is rarely recorded, often forgotten soon after your demise. This lack of lasting recognition adds another layer to the brutality of your fate. Your life, for all its dangers and demands, often fades into the footnotes of history, a ghost of forgotten mirth. Historians still debate whether this anonymity contributed to the jester's ability to speak more freely, or if it was simply a tragic consequence of their unique role. Sometimes, the end comes not from royal disfavor, but from changing times. As courts become more sophisticated, as sensibilities shift, the role of the jester might simply become obsolete. The king might seek intellectual debate instead of slapstick comedy, or turn to written works for amusement rather than live performance. You are rendered irrelevant, a relic of a bygone era. Your skills no longer valued. This slow, agonizing decline into irrelevance can be just as brutal as a sudden dismissal, a quiet death of purpose. So, as you lay your cap aside at the end of each long, grueling day, you are haunted by the specter of the inevitable. The laughter of the court is a temporary shield, but beneath it lies the chilling certainty that, for you, the jester, the end of the show is not merely an act, but a looming, often brutal, reality that awaits you in the shadows of the castle. The final echo of your last jest hangs in the air, a melancholic vibration that fades into the cold stone of the castle. You, the jester, know that your individual story might vanish, but the archetype, the essence of what you embodied, lives on. This brings us to echoes through time, the enduring legacy of the court jester, a figure whose brutal reality nonetheless etched itself into the very fabric of human history, though your name may be lost to the dusty annals. The concept of the fool or the clown persists, a timeless symbol of societal critique and the human need for laughter, even in the darkest of times. Think of modern comedians, stand-up artists who, much like you, stand alone before an audience, armed only with their wit and a microphone. They, too, walk a fine line, pushing boundaries, speaking uncomfortable truths, and sometimes facing backlash for their audacity. The stage may be different, the audience vastly expanded, but the fundamental dynamic, the solitary figure challenging authority through humor, remains surprisingly similar. One common historical fact is that the jester's ability to speak truth to power laid the groundwork for later forms of satire and political commentary. Your veiled insults and clever allegories, once the sole province of the court fool, evolved into the political cartoons, satirical plays, and late-night talk show monologues of today. You were a pioneer, a brave or perhaps just desperate soul who dared to mock the powerful, demonstrating that laughter could indeed be a potent weapon, a way to prick the balloon of arrogance and expose the absurdities of power. This lineage connects your medieval motley to the sharp suits of modern satirists, a surprising thread woven through centuries of human history. Consider the enduring fascination with the jester as a literary and artistic archetype. From Shakespeare's insightful fools like Faceday in Twelfth Night, or Lear's nameless companion, who often speak more wisdom than the kings themselves, to the tragic clown figures in modern literature and film, your essence continues to captivate. These characters embody the paradox of the jester, outwardly silly, inwardly profound, superficially joyous, deeply melancholic. They remind us that humor often springs from pain, and that the greatest truths can sometimes be found in the mouth of a supposed madman. This continuous reinterpretation of the jester's role in art is a powerful testament to your lasting, albeit often anonymous, impact, a particularly fascinating, though rarely discussed, detail about the jester's enduring legacy is their role in preserving cultural traditions and folktales. Because you were often seen as less threatening, you could blend popular anecdotes, local dialects, and traditional songs into your performances, often being the sole conduit for these expressions within the formal court setting. You were a living repository of the common people's culture, subtly weaving it into the highbrow world of the nobility. This made you an unwitting cultural preserver, ensuring that certain traditions and oral histories, which might otherwise have been forgotten, were passed down through your performances. Even in modern psychology, the concept of the wise fool resonates, acknowledging that sometimes profound insights can come from unexpected sources, from those who appear to operate outside conventional norms. You, the jester, were the original wise fool, using absurdity and laughter to cut through pretense and expose fundamental truths about human nature and society. Academics still debate the exact influence of jesters on the development of free speech and political satire, but your role as the court's truth-teller, however limited and dangerous, is undeniably a part of that ongoing conversation. So, as you drift towards slumber, consider the profound and often overlooked impact of your brutal reality. Though your life was precarious and often thankless, the echoes of your laughter, your wit, and your silent courage have resonated through time, shaping the very way we understand humor, power, and the enduring human spirit. The last faint jingle of your bells has faded into the deep velvet hush of the castle night. The cold stone of your chamber feels familiar now, almost a comfort after years of precarious existence. You close your eyes. The images of kings and queens, laughter and fear, slowly swirling behind your lids. ready to dissolve into the quiet embrace of sleep. This is a final bow, a gentle descent into oblivion. As we reflect on the brutal reality of a life lived on the edge of a jester's cap, feel the heavy silence settle around you, a stark contrast to the constant clamor of the court. The worries of tomorrow, the nagging fear of displeasing a monarch, the ache of performing with a heavy heart, all of it begins to recede, softening at the edges like a fading dream. Your motley, draped over a nearby stool, seems less like a costume and more like an empty shell, a symbol of the persona you wore for so long. You can almost feel the tension leaving your muscles, the knot in your stomach loosening as the heavy mantle of the jester falls away. Imagine the soft, cool air against your face, carrying the distant scent of the castle gardens, perhaps the faint whisper of wind through the battlements, the anxieties of being constantly on, of needing to be witty and engaging every waking moment, are finally releasing their grip. Your mind, once a relentless factory of jokes and observations, now slows, unwinding like a clock that has run out of spring. You are no longer the entertainer, the observer, the subtle provocateur. You are simply you, a tired soul seeking solace in the quiet dark. Let the final images of the jester dissolve into the comfortable shadows of your room. The bright colors of the motley soften, bleeding into the darkness. The jingle of bells becomes a distant, almost melodic hum, a lullaby that gently pulls you deeper into tranquility. You remember the laughter, yes, but also the solitude, the fear, the unwavering pressure, and as these memories begin to blur, you realize the enduring strength required to live such a life, to constantly offer mirth while bearing such a heavy burden. The story of the court jester is a powerful one, not just of humor, but of resilience, of subtle courage, and of the profound human capacity to find light even in the most shadowed corners of existence. It reminds us that even those who seem to live lives of triviality often carry immense weight, and that behind every forced smile, there can be a tale of quiet suffering and extraordinary perseverance. You endured, you survived. For a time, and in doing so, you left an indelible mark, a whisper of truth in the grand, boisterous halls of history. As the last lingering thoughts of medieval courts and jesters' caps drift away, feel yourself sinking deeper into your own peaceful slumber. Let the hum of the fan, or the soft sounds around you, become part of your gentle descent. The show is over. The curtain has fallen, there's only quiet and rest.